The ring sat in my palm like a tiny golden grenade, and I was about to pull the pin. 3 carats, 18-karat gold, 73 years of marriage compressed into a circle no bigger than my thumbnail. My grandmother's wedding ring, the one she'd worn every single day until the morning the nurses slipped it off her cold finger and handed it to me in a plastic bag. I was about to sell it for $4,200 to a man named Vinny who smelled like cigarettes and regret. Have you ever held something priceless and known, absolutely known, that you were about to destroy its meaning forever? That you were about to commit a betrayal so deep that if there's an afterlife, you'd have to answer for it? If you have, then maybe you'll understand what I'm about to tell you. If you haven't, well, stick around. Let me know in the comments if you'd have done what I did. My name is Marcus, and this is the story of how I became the person my grandmother always feared I'd become, and how a dead woman's love saved me anyway. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to that Wednesday afternoon, November 15th, the day I walked into Vinny's Golden Pawn on the corner of Fletcher and Main, my grandmother's ring burning a hole through my jacket pocket like radioactive material. The shop was exactly what you'd expect. Fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects, glass cases filled with other people's broken dreams, guitars never played, engagement rings from marriages that didn't make it, watches that had stopped counting someone's time. The air tasted stale, recycled, like it had been breathed by 1,000 desperate people before me. I was just the latest. Help you? Vinny didn't look up from his newspaper. Sports section. The Celtics had lost again. I need to sell something. Now he looked up. His eyes did that thing I'd seen 100 times in the faces of bookies, loan sharks, and casino floor managers. That quick calculation. How desperate is this one? How much can I squeeze? What you got? I pulled out the ring, set it on the glass counter between us. It caught the fluorescent light and threw tiny rainbows across the scratched surface. Vinny's eyebrows rose, just slightly, just enough. Family piece? Does it matter? Matters to the price. He picked it up, examined it with a loupe. Good quality, old, European cut diamond. Don't see craftsmanship like this anymore. How much? 4,000. It's worth 15. To someone, sure. To me, right now, he shrugged. 4,000. Take it or leave it. I should have left it, should have walked out of that shop, driven home, put the ring back in the velvet box where it belonged. Should have called my sponsor, gone to a meeting, done literally anything else. But Marcus Chin doesn't do what he should. Marcus Chin does what the monster inside him demands. 4,200, I said. Vinny smiled. He knew he had me. Deal. Minus $4,200. That's what 73 years of love was worth to me that day. That's the price I put on every Sunday dinner at Grandma's house, every birthday card with a crisp $20 bill inside, every time she held my face in her papery hands and told me I was destined for great things. $4,200. Vinny counted out the bills slowly, deliberately, like he wanted me to feel every single one. Maybe he did. Maybe that was part of the ritual, making people like me understand exactly what we were doing. I stuffed the money in my jacket and walked out without looking back. The bell above the door chimed cheerfully, completely unaware that it was scoring the soundtrack to my destruction. My car was parked 2 blocks away, a 2019 Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper from the time I'd backed into a fire hydrant while checking my phone for poker results. The engine turned over on the 3rd try. I sat there for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to feel something. Guilt, shame, anything? Nothing. That's the thing about addiction they don't tell you in the pamphlets. It doesn't just take your money and your relationships and your self-respect. It takes your ability to feel. It hollows you out until you're nothing but a shell shaped like a person, going through the motions, pretending to be human. My phone buzzed. Text message. You have until midnight. Don't make us come looking. Danny Kowalski, the man I owed $8,000 to, the man whose associates had already paid me one visit, a friendly reminder that had left me pissing blood for 3 days and too scared to go to the hospital. $4,200 wasn't enough, not even close, but it would buy me time. Maybe. I drove to the address Danny had given me, a warehouse in the industrial district that smelled like rust and old meat, the kind of place where people went to pay their debts or become part of the foundation. Danny was waiting. Big guy, ex-linebacker, with hands like dinner plates and eyes that had seen things that would make normal people vomit. Marcus, he said my name like it was a disease. You got my money? Some of it. Some. 4,200. I'll have the rest by when? He stepped closer. I could smell his cologne. Something expensive. Probably stolen. You said that last week. And the week before that. I know. But this time what? You'll win it back? He laughed. The men behind him laughed too. That's what you gamblers always say. This time will be different. But it never is it, Marcus? He took the money from my hand, counted it, pocketed it. You've got 1 week, 7 days. Come up with the other 3,800 or... He gestured vaguely at the warehouse around us, at the stains on the concrete floor that might have been oil and might have been something else entirely. I understand. Good. He patted my cheek, hard enough to sting. Now, get out of my sight. I drove home in a daze. $3,800, 7 days, and I just sold the only valuable thing I owned. The only thing I had left was the house. Grandma's house. The house she left me in her will, along with the ring and a handwritten note I still hadn't been able to read. The house was worth $340,000, more than enough to pay Danny, more than enough to get back in the game, more than enough to win back everything I'd lost. That's what the monster whispered as I pulled into the driveway. That's the lie it told me as I walked through the front door. Past the photos of Grandma on the walls, past the armchair where she used to sit and knit, past 60 years of accumulated memories. You could refinance, take out a loan. No one has to know. I poured myself a drink, then another, then a third. By midnight, I was passed out on the couch, dreaming of roulette wheels and my grandmother's disappointed face. I didn't know it yet, but I was 3 days away from losing everything, and 6 months away from finding something I never expected. 6 months earlier. The first time I placed a bet, I was 11 years old. Grandma Chan had taken me to the county fair. Cotton candy, rickety rides, the smell of fried everything. She was 68 then, still spry, still sharp, still convinced that her only grandson was going to grow up to be president or a doctor, or at least someone who didn't disappoint her. There was a game. Guess how many jelly beans in the jar? $2 to play. Winner takes home a giant stuffed panda. Can I try, Grandma? She looked at me with those dark eyes that seemed to see everything. Marcus, these games are rigged. The house always wins. Please, just once? She sighed, handed me $2. I guessed 847. The correct number was 851. I didn't win the panda. But something else happened. Something clicked in my brain. Some switch that had been waiting to be flipped. The almost win. The near miss. The intoxicating feeling that I'd been so close that if I'd just guessed a little differently, I'd have won. That feeling became my heroin. Throughout high school, it was sports bets with friends. $20 here, 50 there, nothing serious. Just enough to keep that feeling alive. In college, I discovered online poker. Suddenly, I could chase that high 24/7. I could play at 3 a.m. when I should have been studying for finals. I could play during lectures, my laptop open to what looked like notes but was actually a tournament table. I was good. That was the problem. I was good enough to win sometimes, good enough to taste success, good enough to believe the lie that skill could beat mathematics. By the time I graduated, barely, with a 2.1 GPA, I was $12,000 in debt. Grandma bailed me out, didn't ask questions, just wrote a check with that look on her face, the look that said she knew exactly what I'd done and was choosing to love me anyway. This is the last time, Marcus. I know, Grandma, I promise. I meant it, I really did. The problem with addiction is that promises are just words, and words dissolve like sugar in water the moment the monster gets hungry. For 3 years, I was clean. Got a job at an insurance company, boring work, decent pay. Started dating a woman named Sarah who laughed at my jokes and didn't ask why I never wanted to go to Vegas for vacation. Sarah, God, Sarah deserves so much better than what I gave her. We were engaged by year 2. She wore a small diamond ring, not my grandmother's ring, that would come later, according to Chen family tradition, and made plans for a wedding in spring. Then I got laid off. The company was downsizing. Last hired, first fired. Just like that, my boring, stable, addiction-proof life evaporated. I told myself I'd find another job quickly. I had savings. I'd be fine. But the job market was tight. Weeks turned into months. My savings dwindled. And the monster woke up. Just one game. Just to feel something. Just to feel like you're in control. I logged into PokerStars for the first time in 3 years. That night, I won $800. The next night, I lost $1,200. The night after that, I won $3,000. And just like that, I was back. The sugar had dissolved, the promise was gone. Sarah found out 2 weeks before our wedding, found the credit card statements I'd hidden, found the empty bank account, found the real me, the one I'd been hiding behind a mask of normality. How much? She asked, her voice flat. $23,000. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just took off the engagement ring, set it on the kitchen table, and walked out of my life forever. I didn't try to stop her. The monster wouldn't let me. Grandma Chen died on a Tuesday in September. I wasn't there. I should have been there. She'd been asking for me, the nurses said, asking for her Marcus, her brilliant grandson who was going to do great things. I was at an underground poker game in a basement in Chinatown, chasing a straight flush that never came. By the time I got to the hospital, she was already cold. They'd cleaned her up by then, combed her thin white hair, folded her hands across her chest. She looked peaceful, they said. She looked like she was sleeping. She looked dead. I sat with her body for an hour. Didn't cry, couldn't cry. The monster had eaten that part of me too. "I'm sorry, Grandma," I whispered to her still face. "I'm so sorry." If she heard me, she didn't respond. The funeral was 3 days later. Small ceremony, mostly her church friends and a few distant relatives I barely recognized. Mom and Dad were there, sitting on opposite sides of the chapel as always, 20 years of divorce still fresh between them. Neither of them looked at me. They knew. Everyone knew. The gambling, the debt, the broken engagement. Small community, big mouths. After the service, Mr. Henderson from the law firm pulled me aside. "Your grandmother left everything to you, Marcus. The house, her savings, her personal effects." He handed me an envelope. And this. Inside the envelope was a velvet box and a handwritten note. The ring. Her wedding ring. The one Grandpa Chen had saved for 2 years to buy, working double shifts at the textile factory until he'd earned enough for a proper diamond. I opened the note. "My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I hope I went peacefully. I hope you were there, but knowing you, probably not. That's okay. I forgave you a long time ago for all the times you weren't there. The ring is yours now. Tradition says you should give it to your wife, but we both know that tradition and you don't always get along." I stopped reading, couldn't continue, folded the note, put it back in the envelope, shoved it in a drawer. I never finished reading it. That would come later. That would come after everything fell apart and came back together in ways I never expected. For now, I had a house worth $340,000, a ring worth $15,000, and debts that were climbing towards six figures. The monster did the math. You could sell the house, pay off everything, start fresh. But I didn't want to start fresh. I wanted to win. Grandma had left me $47,000 in savings, more than enough to clear my debts and live comfortably for a year while I found another job. I took that money to the casino instead. 36 hours later, it was gone. All of it. Lost to blackjack tables and roulette wheels and a poker game where some Silicon Valley kid bluffed me out of my last $8,000. I was broke. I was alone, and I was about to do something unforgivable. The day I sold Grandma's ring wasn't the beginning of my downfall. That had happened years ago, maybe even at that county fair with the jelly bean jar. No, selling the ring was the middle, the point of no return, the moment when I crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. After paying Danny his $4,200, I had 7 days to come up with the rest, $3,800. I had no job, no savings, no family willing to lend me money anymore. I'd burned every bridge, spent every favor, exhausted every second chance. What I did have was a house. I called a mortgage broker on day 2. By day 4, I had a home equity line of credit for $50,000 secured against Grandma's house, the house she'd lived in for 40 years. The house where I'd learned to ride a bike in the driveway and caught fireflies in the backyard and fell asleep to the sound of her singing Chinese lullabies. I told myself I'd only use what I needed, just enough to pay Danny, then maybe a little extra to get back on my feet. Here's where I need to ask you something. Put yourself in my shoes for a second. You're in debt to dangerous people. You have access to $50,000. You have a disease that tells you money is just fuel for the fire. What would you do? Would you take only what you needed? Or would you convince yourself that you could turn that $50,000 into $500,000 if you just played it right? Tell me in the comments. Be honest. I paid Danny his $3,800. Then I took the remaining $46,200 to the Mohegan Sun Casino, 3 hours away, where nobody knew me, and I could play in peace. I lasted 19 hours. When I walked out of that casino, I had $127 in my pocket and a $50,000 debt to the bank. The sun was coming up, pink and orange streaking across a sky that didn't care about my destruction. I sat in my car in the parking garage and finally felt something. Not guilt, not shame. Terror. What had I done? What was I going to do? The house. I couldn't make the payments. The bank would foreclose. I'd lose everything Grandma had left me, everything she'd worked her whole life to build. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Marcus Chen? Who's this? My name is Angela Martinez. I'm calling about your grandma's ring. I almost hung up. Scam callers, debt collectors, wrong numbers. Nothing good ever came from unknown numbers. But something in her voice made me pause. Something calm, something knowing. What about the ring? I bought it from Vinny's shop 2 days ago. My stomach dropped. Why are you calling me? Because I know who you are, Marcus, and I know what that ring meant. Silence. The kind of silence that stretches like taffy, pulling at something deep inside you. Who are you? Someone who wants to help. Can we meet? Every instinct told me to refuse, but what did I have left to lose? Where? She gave me an address, a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory, public space. We agreed to meet that afternoon. I drove back to Connecticut in a daze, stopped at a rest area to splash water on my face and try to look like someone who hadn't just lost $50,000 in a casino, failed miserably. Angela was already there when I arrived. Mid-50s, sharp suit, silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked like a lawyer or a banker, someone who dealt in large numbers and larger secrets. Marcus. She stood, shook my hand. Her grip was firm. Thank you for coming. You have my grandmother's ring. Why? She gestured for me to sit, ordered me a coffee without asking. I've been looking for you for 6 months, she said, ever since Evelyn died. You knew my grandmother? We worked together, long time ago, before you were born. I didn't know what to say. Grandma had never mentioned an Angela, never mentioned working with anyone except the ladies at her church. I don't understand. Angela reached into her purse and pulled out the velvet box, set it on the table between us. She asked me to do something for her, a promise I made 20 years ago. I didn't think I'd ever have to keep it, but she shrugged. Here we are. What promise? Angela's eyes met mine, and in that moment I saw something that made my blood run cold. She knew everything. The gambling, the debt, the casino. She knew all of it. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, Marcus. She survived things you can't imagine. The Cultural Revolution, immigration, poverty, your grandfather's death. She built a life out of nothing through sheer force of will. I know. Do you? Do you really? Angela leaned forward. She also knew exactly who you were, who you are. She saw it when you were 11, at that county fair. She told me about it, about the look in your eyes when you almost won. The jelly bean jar. How could she know about that? She spent the next 30 years hoping she was wrong, hoping you'd grow out of it, hoping love and stability would be enough to silence whatever hungry thing lived inside you. My hands were shaking. I shoved them under the table. But she wasn't wrong, was she, Marcus? Why are you telling me this? Angela pushed the velvet box toward me. Because she left instructions, very specific instructions, for what to do if you ever sold this ring. I don't want it back, I said. I don't deserve it. Angela smiled, sad, knowing, patient. It's not about deserving. It's about what happens next. She reached into her purse again and pulled out an envelope, old, yellowed, with my name written on it in Grandma's careful handwriting. She wrote this 20 years ago, updated it every few years, but the core message stayed the same. She gave it to me with instructions to deliver it only if 3 conditions were met. What conditions? First, that she had passed away. Second, that you had sold the ring. Third, that you had lost everything else. My throat tightened. She knew this would happen? She hoped it wouldn't, but she prepared for it anyway. That's who Evelyn Chen was. She prepared for the worst while praying for the best. Angela held out the envelope. Read it. Then we'll talk about what comes next. My hands shook as I took the envelope. The paper felt fragile, ancient, like it might crumble to dust at any moment. I opened it carefully, pulled out the letter inside. My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and you finally hit bottom. I'm not angry. I'm not disappointed. I'm relieved. Because bottom means there's nowhere left to go but up. I knew about the gambling long before you thought I did. I knew when you were 11, at that fair with the jelly beans. I saw the look in your eyes, the same look your grandfather had when he first discovered mahjong in the back rooms of Chinatown. The same hunger, the same need. Your grandfather was a gambler too, Marcus. Did you know that? I never told you because I hoped, foolishly perhaps, that if you didn't know, it wouldn't be genetic, that you could escape what he couldn't. He didn't escape. He lost everything 3 times before he finally stopped. The first time, we were young and starting over was easy. The second time, we had your mother and it nearly destroyed our marriage. The third time, he was 52 years old and it killed him. Heart attack at a card table in Atlantic City. They didn't even call me for 6 hours. I never told anyone the real cause of death. The shame was too great. But I'm telling you now because you need to understand. This disease runs in our blood. It took your grandfather. It will take you too, unless you choose to fight it. I left you the ring not because I expected you to keep it forever. I left it because I knew, deep down, that one day you would sell it. And when that day came, when you had traded my 73 years of marriage for whatever desperate sum you needed, that would be your rock bottom. The ring is a symbol, Marcus, a symbol of love that endures, that forgives, that sees you at your worst and chooses you anyway. I'm choosing you now, even from beyond the grave. I'm choosing to believe that the boy who caught fireflies in my backyard is still in there somewhere, that he's worth saving. Angela will explain the rest. Trust her. She's been my friend for 40 years, and she's the only person outside our family who knows the full truth. I love you, Marcus. I always have. I always will. Now, stop running and start climbing. Your grandmother, Evelyn Chan. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at those words. Minutes, hours. The coffee went cold in front of me. Grandpa was a gambler. He died at a card table. The family shame that nobody ever talked about, the mystery around his sudden death. It all made sense now. And Grandma knew. She knew about me from the beginning. She'd been preparing for this moment for 20 years. There's more, Angela said gently. When you're ready. I looked up. My eyes were wet. Tell me. Angela explained everything. 20 years ago, when I was just a kid counting jelly beans, my grandmother had set up a trust, a secret fund managed by Angela, specifically designed to activate if I ever hit rock bottom. She knew the disease, Angela said. She knew that tough love doesn't work, that cutting you off would only drive you deeper into the hole. She also knew that bailing you out would enable the addiction, so she found a middle path. What kind of middle path? Conditional support. The trust has $200,000 in it, Marcus, enough to pay off your debts, save your house, and give you a fresh start. $200,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. But there are conditions, non-negotiable. You agree to them, or the money goes to charity and you never hear from me again. What conditions? Angela pulled out a document, legal paper, dense with text. 1. You enter an inpatient rehabilitation program for gambling addiction, minimum 90 days, no exceptions. 2. Upon completion, you live in supervised housing for an additional 6 months, weekly therapy, daily check-ins, full financial transparency. 3. Control of your finances transfers to the trust for 5 years. $200,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. But there are conditions, non-negotiable. You agree to them, or the money goes to charity and you never hear from me again. What conditions? Angela pulled out a document, legal paper, dense with text. 1. You enter an inpatient rehabilitation program for gambling addiction, minimum 90 days, no exceptions. 2. Upon completion, you live in supervised housing for an additional 6 months, weekly therapy, daily check-ins, full financial transparency. 3. Control of your finances transfers to the trust for 5 years. You'll have a monthly allowance for living expenses, but any amount over $500 requires approval. 4. You attend Gamblers Anonymous meetings, minimum 3 per week for the first 2 years, 2 per week after that for the rest of your life. 5. You never enter a casino, purchase a lottery ticket, or place any bet of any kind, ever again. First violation nullifies the entire arrangement, and you forfeit any remaining trust assets. I stared at the document. 5 years of having someone else control my money, a lifetime of meetings, 90 days locked away. And if I refuse, then you walk out that door, I keep the ring, and you figure out how to pay back $50,000 to the bank on your own. She wasn't bluffing. I could see it in her eyes. Why would my grandmother do this? Why spend $200,000 on someone who might just fail again? Angela smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her. Because she loved you. Because she watched her grandfather destroy himself and she swore she wouldn't let history repeat. Because she believed, truly believed that everyone deserves a chance at redemption. She paused. And because she was a gambler herself, once. Did you know that? Before she met your grandfather. She lost everything at 23. Her savings, her apartment, her fiancé. She was going to kill herself, walk into the ocean, and never come back. What stopped her? A stranger, a woman at the beach who saw her walking into the waves and ran in after her, pulled her out, sat with her all night, got her into treatment. Your grandmother never saw her again, never even learned her name, but she spent the rest of her life paying forward that kindness. She tapped the document. This is her paying it forward to you. I thought about my life, the lies I'd told, the people I'd hurt, the ring I'd sold, the rock bottom I'd hit, and I thought about fireflies in the backyard, and Sunday dinners, and a grandmother who had seen the worst of me and chosen to love me anyway. Where do I sign? 3 months later, day 87 of treatment. I was sitting in Dr. Patel's office going through my regular session when she said something that changed everything. Marcus, I want to talk about Angela Martinez. What about her? Have you looked into her background at all? Who she is, how she knew your grandmother? I shook my head. I'd been too focused on my own recovery to ask questions. Angela visited every other week, brought news about the house, the debts being paid off, the life waiting for me on the outside. I trusted her because Grandma trusted her. Your grandmother didn't have a friend named Angela Martinez, Dr. Patel said carefully. I've been doing some research. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean that no one by that name appears in any of your grandmother's records. Her church contacts, her social circles, her work history, nothing. Angela Martinez doesn't exist in your grandmother's life. The room started to spin. Then who is she? That's what I wanted to ask you. I called Angela that night from the facility's payphone, demanded answers. She agreed to visit the next day. When she arrived, she looked different, older, tired, like she'd been carrying a weight she was finally ready to set down. You want to know who I am? She said. Yes, I'm your sister. The word hit me like a thunderbolt.
That's impossible. I'm an only child. No, Marcus, you're the only child your parents raised, but you weren't their first. She pulled out a photograph, old, faded, a young woman in a hospital gown holding a newborn baby. Your mother was 16 when she had me, unmarried, terrified. Her parents, your grandparents, made her give me up for adoption. They told her it was the only way. They told her she'd ruin her life if she kept me. I stared at the photograph. The young woman had my mother's eyes. Your grandmother tracked me down when I was 30. She'd always felt guilty about making your mother give me away. She wanted to make amends. We formed a relationship, secret of course. Your mother doesn't know. She thinks I'm dead. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because your grandmother wanted to protect everyone, and because she saw an opportunity. Angela leaned forward. She knew you were sick, Marcus. She knew you'd eventually destroy yourself if someone didn't intervene. But she also knew you'd never accept help from family. Your pride, your shame, they'd never let you. So she created a stranger, someone who could reach you without triggering all your defenses. The trust, the conditions, the letter, it was all real. But Angela Martinez, the mysterious family friend, that was a fiction, a role I agreed to play because it was the only way to save my baby brother. I sat back. My whole life I'd felt alone, the only child of divorced parents, the disappointment of the family, the screw-up who couldn't get it together. And all along, there was a sister out there, someone who shared my blood, someone who'd been watching over me without my knowledge. The ring, I said. You didn't buy it from Vinny by accident. No, I've had someone watching that pawn shop for months. The moment you walked in, I got a call. I bought the ring an hour after you sold it. You were waiting for me. We were waiting for you to be ready to climb. I thought about everything I'd been through, the treatment, the therapy, the slow, painful work of rebuilding myself from the inside out. I'd done it thinking I was alone, thinking Grandma's love was the only thing holding me up. But I was wrong. I wasn't alone. I never had been. 6 months later, I'm writing this from Grandma's house. My house now, though it doesn't feel like mine yet. Maybe it never will. Maybe that's okay. The debts are paid, all of them. Danny, the bank, the credit cards, every last dollar has been settled. Angela, I still call her that, even though I know her real name now, helped me set up a payment plan for the trust. I'm paying back every cent, slowly, out of my salary from my new job. I work at a nonprofit now, gambling addiction counseling. Turns out there's a need for people who understand the monster from the inside. People who can look a desperate gambler in the eye and say, I know exactly how you feel, and I'm living proof that there's another way. Sarah reached out last month. She saw an article about me in the local paper, Recovery, a Chen family story. She wanted to congratulate me. We got coffee. It was awkward and strange and somehow perfect. We're not getting back together. Too much history. Too much hurt. But she doesn't hate me anymore. And that feels like a miracle. Mom knows about Angela now.
I told her 2 months ago. It was complicated. It was crying, screaming, decades of buried guilt exploding to the surface. But they're talking now. My mother and the daughter she gave up. Healing is happening, slowly, in its own time. I still go to meetings 3 times a week, just like the agreement says. The monster is still there. It will always be there. But it's quieter now. Hungrier some days than others. I've learned to recognize its voice and talk back to it. You could play just one game. No, I couldn't. You're better now. You could control it. No, I can't. What's the harm in... The harm is everything. The harm is losing myself again. The harm is breaking the promise I made to a dead woman who loved me enough to prepare for my destruction 20 years before it happened. The ring sits in a safe deposit box at the bank. I can't wear it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can't sell it again either. It's a reminder, a talisman, proof that love can outlast betrayal, that forgiveness is possible even when you don't deserve it. Grandma's note, the full note, the one I couldn't finish reading the day of her funeral, it ends with this. Recovery is not a destination, Marcus. It's a direction. As long as you're moving forward, as long as you're trying, you're winning. And that's the only game that matters. She was right. She usually was. I look out the window at the backyard where I used to catch fireflies. The jar is still there, on a shelf in the garage, dusty and forgotten. I should throw it away, but I can't. It reminds me of who I was, of who I could become again if I'm not careful. And it reminds me of her, of Sunday dinners and Chinese lullabies and a love that saw through every lie I ever told. The last time I gambled was 287 days ago. Tomorrow it will be 288. One day at a time. That's how you climb out of rock bottom. That's how you earn back a ring you never deserved in the first place. So, that's my story, all of it. The parts I'm proud of and the parts that still make me sick with shame. I told you because I think stories like this need to be told. Because somewhere out there, someone is about to sell their grandmother's ring, or their father's watch, or their mother's necklace, or whatever symbol of love they have left, and they need to know that it doesn't have to end there. But I want to hear from you. Have you ever battled something that felt impossible to beat? A habit, an addiction, a part of yourself that seemed determined to destroy you? You don't have to share details. I know how personal these things are. But if you've been there, drop a comment. Let me know I'm not alone. Let someone else scrolling through these comments know they're not alone either. And tell me, do you think I deserved a second chance? Some days I'm still not sure myself. Type yes or no and tell me why. I read every single comment, and I'm still figuring out the answer. Because here's the thing about redemption. You don't earn it. You can't. All you can do is try to deserve it, every single day,
for the rest of your life. That's what I'm doing now, one day at a time.